Hi everyone, today's video is going to be my build for the Diecast Mafia Monster Vehicle build. Sorry if this video is a little late. We're in the middle of a bit of a heat wave in the UK and I don't function that well when it's very hot. As well as trying to animate or be cooked up in the house when it's this warm is a bit like that scene from Indiana Jones where they open Pandora's box and everyone's faces start melting. I put the clip in but I don't want to risk a copyright strike, but yeah. So if I sound a bit flustered, that's why. Anyhow, initially I was kind of struggling with an idea for this build because I haven't really built that many monster trucks. Plus, I was struggling to figure out how to arm a monster truck because they're so high up. I figured if you put any machine gun on there, they wouldn't be able to shoot at a car because it'd be a lot lower. But then I remembered I've always wanted to do a gaslands version of a big air ballet because it's one of my favourite castings. I also had this Avengers Hotwheels monster truck, which I felt was kind of lacking in detail, but that's probably because it was modelled off of the Avenger monster truck, and the bodies on the monster trucks are usually made out of fiberglass, so they're not very detailed. So the initial idea was to just do a simple body swap, switch out the body from the Avenger to the one from the Big Air Ballet. So off camera I drilled the bases on both cars, and here's the Big Air Ballet disassembled just in case you're going to get one and you want to see what you're going to have to work with. And here's the Avenger monster truck completely disassembled. So one of the things I dislike about the Hot Wheels monster trucks is the driving position is set so low and the body is set so high that the driver is literally looking through the radiator grille to drive. So my initial plan to swap the bodies over had to be changed a bit. So since I was going to change it over, I decided just to use the interior from the Big Air Ballet and just cut the rest from the monster truck. You also notice at this point that the engine's facing the other way. So when I was switching over the bodies, I decided I'm just going to switch the chassis around and mount the body the opposite way. So first I need to remove this seat and this, I think it's an oil tank or a fuel tank reserve. I'll just use my jeweler saw to cut that off. I do this precisely so that I can reuse these parts in another build so they can go off to the bits box. Same with the roll cage, I cut the roll cage off delicately enough so that I can reuse the roll cage. So for those with a keen eye and have seen my previous builds, you'll notice I used the same roll cage from my previous monster truck build on the scratch buggy build that I did a while back. So here, test fit the new body and just to see where I need to make some alterations. So initially I only intended to cut off the suspension struts from the Big Air Ballet, but after some test fitting and back and forth I ended up just chopping off the front bumper and keeping the seats and the roll bar from the original car. The same with the monster truck chassis. In the end I only keep the suspension struts and just remove the entire frame completely. So like I said before, I didn't really want to put a weapon on this because I didn't think you'd be able to aim low, but the thing I wanted to do was to turn this into a pickup truck so I could mount crew figures in the back. So for this I used a jeweler saw to cut the trunk lid out, or the boot, and then cut the front and rear sections off the original base plate for the Big Air Ballet. This is so I've got something to mount the interior to, which I can then mount onto the chassis of the monster truck and still have somewhere to put the body on top so it fits nicely. So now it's time to get to the part of the build I really dislike, using the super annoying glue. I've started calling it this because it seems to want to stick to everything but what you want it to stick to. So I start by gluing the chassis and the interior piece together, and then use the body to make sure everything lines up right. And then glue this to the chassis of the monster truck, and again use the body to make sure everything lines up correctly. After this I glue the front and rear bumpers on. And this is where the super annoying glue kicks in and glues the rear bumper to my thumb. I fixed that off camera. So after fixing that off camera, I decided to add a driver, and I used this resin 172 scale World War II German driver I got off of eBay. After a quick test fit, I realised he's not going to fit and do my usual trick of cutting his feet off. And then I do a quick test fit after that, which doesn't work. So off camera, I use my rotary tool with this off camera, I use my rotary tool to bore a hole straight through the seat to allow enough room. Using this severe tool, I'm not too sure what it's actually called, but I just refer to it as the severe tool. I then glue the driver in now that he fits properly. I also reattached the steering wheel because it kind of broke off whilst I was test fitting the driver and everything. So like I said before, I've never been too sure how to arm a monster truck. So this is where I got the novel idea to put a crew platform on the back, because I've got a bunch of these 172 scale Dark Alliance figures. And so therefore, if I'm playing a game with this, I can kind of switch out whichever figure I want to put in the back. We've got a couple here, we've got a shotgun guy, a guy with a minigun, or a guy with a grenade launcher, and so depending on the rules of the game, if I ever play this, I can switch them out and have a different weapon. So moving on to the walls, I just make these with some styrene sheet. I cut these pieces off camera and then start the fiddly process of trying to glue them in. I then use a strip of styrene as the upper lip for the bed. I'm just making sure it kind of conforms to the body as it's mounted in at an angle. Off camera, I go ahead and just kind of plug up some holes with some more styrene sheets just to make the bed look a bit more realistically whole, and obviously just there's no gaps and such. So after this, I move on to the paint. So I first start off by doing some touch-up work, because obviously where I cut the hood out, the exposed metal's there, so I use some Revell Fiery Red. Doing this touch-up work, I apply a base coat of the Revell Rust to the chassis. And then next I move on to painting the body. So for the body, I'm going to do a simple dry brushing effect. For this you're going to want 3 brushes of 3 different thicknesses and 3 different shades of brown, as well as a piece of tissue paper to wipe the brush on. So I start with the thickest brush and the darkest brown, which happens to be Revell Leather Brown. So I'm going to apply some paint onto the brush and then rub off as much as possible on the tissue paper, because you want as little paint on the brush as you can possibly get. And then you just simply want to dry brush it onto the body, and you want to make multiple passes because less is more, until you just kind of just build it up as you go, and then move on to the next brush and the next paint, which is Revell Rust. And then finally I use the thinnest brush and Revell Bronze, although you can use an orange, and you really only want to apply this to the top surfaces such as the hood and the roof to really sell the rust effect. And then go back and apply a base coat of the Revell Rust to the bumpers, and then dry brush on some Revell Silver. After this I paint the interior with some Revell Stone, and then paint all the lights with some Revell Beige. For the tail lights I use Revell Fiery Red and some more brown again because it's kind of close to orange. Next I dry brush on some Revell Steel onto the chassis. This kind of gives it a dull steel that's kind of rusted over look, and it's just kind of picked up dirt and it's kind of been dulled down a bit. So for the driver, I start by painting his trousers with some Revell Leather Brown, and then paint his top with some Revell Light Blue, which I also use on the suspension struts. And then I also use some Revell Skin Colour on his skin, obviously. Around this point, because I'm painting at night, it's getting a bit late and I just want to get the painting done. So I kind of skip the rest, but I just go and paint a few little details here and there, and then finish the whole thing off with a black wash, just so everything kind of blends in together. And here we have the final build, and as you can see, it turned out beautifully. I did want to add some kind of plough to the front, but I really couldn't think of anything interesting to build. But I really couldn't think of an interesting design to build for the front, although I do think it really looks good without it anyway. But who knows, maybe in the future I will attach one to it, because there's still plenty of room there. So as usual, stick around for the glamour shots and a little short animation. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.